Howdy folks. Today we're going to be doing a comparison video on the RSI Constellation series. Here in front of us we have the Constellation Andromeda, the gunship general purpose variant of the Constellation. It's a great little ship. Oh, not little. It's a pretty good size vessel. Alright, so you might be wondering, if you take the dive on a Constellation, especially the Andromeda, what are you getting? Well, for all of the Constellation series, the front half of the ship is fairly similar. So we'll say starting from these bunks, going all the way to the front glass is pretty similar. There's a few differences in the cockpit area, but this is the crew compartment. We've got a couple of gun racks, lockers. There's a toilet, which is great, although I'm always a little hesitant when I see a toilet shower combo. Just a little personally. There's a table here that doesn't pop out yet for some reason, but you can sit down. There's the airlock, which this is pretty much the fastest way to get into the ship when you're on the ground. Now you get to the front, all of them have two turrets. It's just what the two turrets are is a little different on different models. On the Andromeda, which is this particular ship, they're both gun turrets. This is the gunship variant. The Andromeda comes with 4 size 4 Rhino repeaters, which are pretty powerful. I mean, that's a pretty tough set of guns. Any fighter that comes across your nose is going to have a really bad day. And I know a lot of folks talk about switching those up to size 5s because they are size 5 mounts with size 4 gimbals on every mount. However, if you're only fighting large ships, and I mean like large slow ships, so other constellations, maybe Hercules, Hammerheads, generally what I would kind of think of like boss ships right now in the meta. Okay, those size 5s are helpful, but how often is that the only thing you're going to fight? Now, if you're fighting in a group and you've got other support ships or you've got people running your turrets, don't listen to me. But if you're flying this thing solo, I really would keep those size 4s, or maybe do 2 size 4s and 2 size 5s. Keep them on separate firing banks. That way you have a little control. The Andromeda has a massive amount of missiles, and I always get the number wrong. So I'm going to go peek at it real quick. So we got 24 strike forces and 28 marksman 1s. Those are size 2s and size 1s. So you have 24 size 2 missiles, 28 size 1s. Those size 1s are actually pretty nice. They don't do that much damage. However, they're very fast, and the marksman 1s live up to their name. They're quite accurate little missiles. I actually run them on most of my smaller ships where putting size 2 rattlers isn't necessarily a great idea. Let's go back and peek at the cargo area. So the middle section of the ships is a little different on different ships. In the Constellation Andromeda, you have a 96 SCU storage bay, cargo bay. For the Andromeda, the Aquila, and the Phoenix, it's all the same 96 SCU bay. The only difference is what's above it. In the Phoenix, where I'm standing now, it would actually be the nice area for the fancy rich folks paying for a ride to a B. In the Aquila, it's pretty much the same as this. The Taurus is a totally different beast. Not really, it's the same, just much, much larger. But we go back to the Delta section. I have a feeling they're going to add component access soon, because they've already got the spots for it. We go back to the very back section. In the Andromeda, Aquila, and Phoenix, there is a snub fighter back here that you can pop into. Once again, this ship is a perfectly adequate solo ship. I own a Taurus. I pledged a Taurus. It's one of my favorite ships. It's incredibly useful. But I pledged the Taurus because I found I wasn't using the snub fighter. I mean, that would require me having 4 people on board to make it worth it, because I would much rather have 2 people in my turrets defending the ship than I would lose one of those turrets and have somebody off in the snub fighter. But it is a pretty cool little snub fighter. I actually really like the way they fly. And that's about all I've got to say about the Andromeda as far as personal opinions about it. Let's dig into the stats on the Andromeda while we're getting to our destination here. So the Andromeda, as I've said, it's the gunship variant. It's probably the most versatile of the Constellation series. They're good-looking ships. One other note before I get into the stats and costs and stuff, you can actually buy in-game paints for Constellations. So I know for a lot of folks that's kind of neat. I don't have one on this ship. I have one on my Taurus, which y'all might see in a minute. I'm not sure. The Andromeda is the biggest ship that you can pledge a starter ship. And I mean, if you know you're going to enjoy it and you're going to do it, cool. That's $275 though. The standalone Andromeda is $240. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for a starter pack. That's a lot. Granted, you are legitimately getting a ship that can do anything you want to do, but that's a lot of money. In game, you can buy this ship for 3,548,000 Alpha UEC, which for what this ship is capable of, that is a great bargain. They're all for sale at New Deal, and the Andromeda is also rentable, which is great. Because if you see something you like in this video and you're like, hey man, I want to try it out, but I don't necessarily want to spend, $3.5 million Alpha UEC. You can rent them. They are quite expensive to rent. It's like $96,000 a day. Some of the actual stats on this ship. So you're looking at 181,344 hull HP. The stock shields of 100,000 HP. I mean, they're just obscene. The DPS on the Andromeda is 1,570, and that's stock. The SCM speed is 144, and the maximum speed is 911. Now, you might be wondering, how does it fly in atmosphere? Bad's not the right word. A lot of ships, especially these larger ships, when they hit atmosphere, they seem to lose the ability to accelerate, and that is just not a problem with the Constellation series. It seems to hold its speed much better than comparable size ships once you get down into atmosphere, and that kind of matters. However, you also have to remember it's a large ship, and it's not made for maneuver fighting. This is a jousting ship. Honestly, if I'm fighting smaller ships, I tend to actually use almost a kiting method for PvE ships. Just there's no easier way to do it. It's great. You just keep backing up, keep your nose pointed towards your target. If you're running those gimbals and it's a small fighter, you're going to eat them up so fast. The Andromeda, all of the constellations benefit from crew play, but the Andromeda benefits the most because that means you could have 4 size 4 or 5, depending on your loadout, guns controlled by the pilot. If you've got both turrets full, that's 4 additional Panther repeaters, 52 missiles, and if it's really mad and you've got a 4th person in your crew, it spits out a little snub fighter to chase you down. There is a lot going on for this ship. There's a lot of positives. I think when you're really looking at those serious purchase ships, you know, those $200 ships, you're not going to find a better value. And as I've said quite a few times in many of my videos so far, value is a big driving factor for me. I want something that I'm going to get my money's worth. And the Constellations absolutely do that. RSI to me is like the the early 1900s Ford of ships. You are going to get a ship that does exactly what it's supposed to do. All right, folks, our next constellation we're going to peek at is the Aquila. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of that name, but I don't speak Latin, so get over it. Nobody does. It's a dead language. Anyways, this is the Aquila. Now, there are some key differences. Obviously, each of them is a little unique. This ship is interesting to me for a couple of prominent reasons that actually don't affect the performance of the ship at all. The first one is I actually really like this paint job. I don't normally like orange, but those are great accents. And I can't think of the right word to describe that blue-gray hint of green on the body. It's just a really nice paint scheme, I think. It looks great. And that means you don't have to spend a few $100,000 Alpha UEC to find one you like in-game. The other one doesn't affect the performance of the ship, but it definitely is a pilot's comfort thing, and it's that front glass on the Aquila is by far the best of all of the Constellation series. It's got that rounded look, but also there are no cross beams in your face like there are for some of the other ships. In fact, my favorite to fly is the Taurus, but it has cross members that are just right there in your face that have a habit of getting in the way right when you don't need them to. You don't quite have that problem on the Aquila. Another difference with the Aquila and the Taurus or the Andromeda is the Aquila has these laser cannons. Now, when you're talking about 4 size 4 laser cannons, that can make up for some of the deficiencies you have with laser cannons versus repeaters. When you're talking about targeting smaller ships, just because the volume of fire, having 4 of them is going to make up for the loss in volume of fire for other weapons. Alright, so we're inside the Aquila now. You'll probably notice it looks a lot like the Andromeda in the front half, which is true. Well, it looks like the Andromeda all throughout. One of the things that's different is instead of having the orange accents on the interior, it's got that light blue accents instead, which I actually kind of like. It's got the same problem with the table. I know it's a small thing. It just bugs me because it highlights when you look at it, but you can't pop it up. Details matter. It does still have a missile complement. It's only 24 of the size 2s, but I mean, let's be real. 24 size 2 missiles is going to take out quite a few things. It still has 2 turrets. However, the top turret, instead of being a gun turret is a science station. It's classified as dedicated science station. I shouldn't say this so loud. My wife might get all excited. She loves science. Really, in truth, it's a high-powered scanner. I actually think if you were to run an Aquila and a couple of Andromedas, that would be a really tough fight using the Aquila as a support ship. Keep things highlighted. It does still have the snub fighter in the back. Is still a P-52, although you can switch that out for a P-72. If you pledge this ship, you're going to get the ship, the P-52 at the rear, and you're also going to get an Ursa rover. That does not happen when you purchase it in-game, which is how I did, because I already have a Taurus. The cargo capacity is the same as the Andromeda at 96 SCU, so this is still a very useful ship for running cargo. And when we come back to the back, you can see it's identical in virtually every way on the interior to the Andromeda. Come back here. And there's our P-52. The Andromeda is a great ship. I mean, all the Constellations are great ships. The Andromeda is a little more pricey. The Andromeda checks in at $310 on the RSI page. It is not a starter pack ship. In game, you're looking at $4 million. In game, you're looking at 4,926,700 alpha UEC. So it's starting to get up there in cost. You know, that's comparable to a C2. The gameplay loop for it isn't currently in yet. The exploration game loop just isn't there right now. I do think the Aquila is a great ship, but you're starting to pay for things that you can't use yet when you purchase it. I do think the Andromeda or a Taurus is just a better option right now. Although, once again, I really like that paint job. It's so 90s. That just occurred to me. Yeah, it's so 90s, early 2000s. I love it. The ship is purchasable at New Deal. They're in Lorville. It's not rentable. It has the same hull HP as the Andromeda at 181,344. So it's a pretty tough ship. It's got that 100,000 shield HP. Granted, that's spread out, so it's not like you've got one spot that's going to eat up 100,000 damage. That would be fantastic, though, right? It does have the highest base DPS because of those cannons, so you're looking at 1,917. And it also has the fastest SCM speed at 146 and the fastest max speed at 988. We're going to go put this up. We're going to pull out the Phoenix next. See you guys in just a minute. Alright guys, this is the Constellation Phoenix. It comes in this white and black. I'm not normally a fan of white ships for the simple fact of I tend to fly on moons a lot, and it can be really hard if you're in third person to really see things as well as you would like. But that is actually a really nice paint job. This is one of the ships that I like to call a flex ship. Unlike all the other flex ships, though, where you buy it just so you can be like, yeah, I've got a Phoenix or I've got an 890 jump. This one's actually useful because the 890 jump is it's a party boat. It's not mission useful. This is still a fully mission capable ship. It's still got 96 SCU of cargo. It still flies like all the other Constellations, so it flies well for what it's designed for. yeah, let's get inside here. So here we are in the interior. You'll notice pretty quick, it looks just like the other two we've already gone over. The key difference in the crew area of this version is the white accents instead of the others. So instead of the orange for the Andromeda or the blue for the Aquila, we have these white accents everywhere. We get to the cockpit, and even the captain's chairs look fancier, which, given the price difference between the other Constellations, they better. We've got 2 defense turrets, just like the Andromeda. It has Omni Sky. I'm not sure if it's Omni Sky or Omniski. I've been saying Omniski, but I don't know. It could be either. But it's got 4 Omni Sky 12 laser cannons, which I honestly think it might be a better idea to swap those out with, M6s, or I think it's M7s at that size. I can't remember. I don't use laser cannons, so I don't want to give you false information. But we've still got the 28 size 1 missiles. I mean, that is a pretty strong complement. Now, the crew compartment is not what you folks want to see, though. I know what y'all want to see. Y'all want to see the cabin. So, much like a lot of the Origin ships, the Phoenix has a really nice passenger area. We've got these 2 little bedrooms for passengers. At these, look at that chair. I mean, geez, I want to sit down in it right now. We get up here. I mean, you can play solitaire because it's 1,000 years in the future, and we haven't invented better stuff yet. They've got TVs all over the place. There's a bar, cigars. Oh, look at that shaker. Sinks. Little meeting area, dining area. This is supposed to be a hot tub, but for whatever reason, it's not functional right now. Now, there is a little bit of component access that you don't get in the other Constellations. That's a shield generator, although you can open one side but not the other. I've never quite understood that. We have a captain's cabin. Now, one thing I've always wanted, where's the restroom for our passengers? Like, do they got to go all the way to the front and use that little dinky one? Because I'd be upset. Unless it's like hidden somewhere. It's probably hidden somewhere and I just haven't come across it yet. But we've got a little bit more component access back here. That looks like a cooler. Oh. Well. Then we get back to the back. This comes with a P72 instead of a P52. I haven't really noticed much of a performance difference between the two. I mean, they're both very adequate little machines. And then to access the cargo area, there's actually an elevator here hidden in the floor, which I actually kind of like a lot. And you still got that 96 SCU of cargo. So this is still a very flexible ship. If I were going to buy a flex ship, I would pick this over pretty much any of them, just for its its functionality. It's still a functional ship to do other things in, and to do them easily. Because yeah, you can do other things in like an 890 jump or a 600, but there's always just extra steps that make it frustrating. So as you look at the Phoenix, the exterior is pretty much the same, with the exception of it's been expanded in that middle section to make space for having the two compartments, the cargo compartment underneath and then the passenger area on top. The gameplay loop hasn't truly been implemented. I mean, you can pick up passengers and charge them. You can do service beacons for people who need a ride. And I mean, this would be I'd be pretty excited if I put up a service beacon saying I needed a ride and someone showed up in a Phoenix. That'd be pretty great. But there's no missions yet for it. The ship costs $350 on the RSI page, and it is a time-limited availability. So they only sell it on the RSI page during events, and it's first come, first serve. I know we just had Invictus last week, and every day these were selling out, and they were selling out quick. There is an alternate version of this called the Phoenix Emerald, which has a really strong green paint job. It's not my taste, but I can see the allure. If you want to buy this in game, it is 5,658,800 Alpha UEC. Once again, that's at New Deal in Lorville. One of the other things this comes with, I didn't stop to pick it up, but if you purchase it, if you pledge it, you get the RSI Lynx, which is a fancier version of the Ursa Rover. I prefer the Ursa Rover, but that's because I like to use it for ambulance runs. You can throw people in the up the ramp a lot easier than you can in some of the other ground vehicles. But that's just a personal thing. I think the Lynx looks great, and it actually does drive really, really well. Yeah, I think that's about all I'm going to say about the Phoenix. Oh, I left out stats. So this has a little bit weaker hull compared to the Aquila and the Andromeda, and I think it's because of the expansion that they did on that middle section. So you're losing about 20,000 hull HP. You're going down to 161,845, which is still a very tough ship. You're also looking at the same shield strength base as the other Constellations at 100,000, which is pretty nice. Those Omni Skies are a little bit weaker than the Aquila's cannons, so your DPS is actually going to take a hit down to 1,819. It has the same SCM and max speed as the Andromeda. That's 144 for SCM, 911 for max. So you do lose a little bit, and I do think it's important to note, of all of the Constellations besides the Taurus, this one feels the most sluggish in maneuvers. None of the Constellations are what you would classify as agile. They're not awful. They take some practice and patience. I would say if you pledge a Constellation, go into Arena Commander and practice with it. It won't take very long, and you'll get a feel for how to use it. All right, let's put this up and get out my favorite last, the Taurus. All right, folks. We are on to the last of the Constellations. This is the Taurus. This is... Well, let me stop for a second. I've been trying to figure out what my favorite ship in-game is for probably a couple months now. And I think it's the Taurus. I don't know that other than a Constellation, not geez, other than a Cutlass Black, I don't think there's a more versatile ship in game at the moment. You can do anything you want to do in the game in this ship. And as far as value-driven purchases go, if you're looking at pledges, this has got to be right at the top. I mean, the only thing you're going to get more in-game value out of would be the industrial ships, but even then, those do their industry and that's it. You know, I'm going to get the cost out of the way for this. To pledge this ship is $190 US. I pledged this ship. I absolutely love it. I love the way it looks. The only complaint I have in general for this ship is actually the front glass. You can kind of see the way it comes to those points there. That's actually right dead center on the pilot's eye line. And that's my only complaint. I love the basic paint job. I took my custom job off so you guys could see it because it's still a great look. I love gold on silver or gold on black. I think it's a really nice contrast. You're looking at 4 size 4 rhinos, laser repeaters, stock. You know, it's a ship that as soon as you buy it, you don't have to change anything, and you've got a ship that can do whatever you want to do. It's got 24 size 2 missiles. I don't think I've changed them over since 319 dropped. I normally run Rattlers, just because there's something really cool about when it splits off, and instead of 1 missile, they're looking at like 5 chasing them down. Oh, it's so great. Well, let's get inside. Now you can buy this ship in game for 3,256,400 Alpha UEC. Alright folks, so here we are in the crew compartment. You'll notice it looks a lot like the Andromeda, although the racks for this actually come out a little more. It's almost like they steal off. There is actually a design glitch right now where you can just see through the floor. You can't see it right now because of where I'm at, but if you're like over a planet or a moon and you look through that hole, you'll actually see the surface of the planet or moon, which I'm saying it's a feature, not a bug. I think it's a feature. They obviously are some kind of hollow viewing area, to give you that extra ambiance when you want to fall asleep like you're about to fall through the floor. Super relaxing. I will say the beds in this look really crappy. Like, that looks like an awful place to sleep. But it's a fictional universe, so who cares? The table does not function in this either. I know. I complain about it a lot. I don't know that I've mentioned it. Each of these little areas, it's an internal storage locker. You still got the weapon racks. And, of course, you've still got your obligatory restroom. Although it doesn't actually have a toilet, so yeah, I'm just gonna let that lie. Shower, all that. I kind of dig that the Taurus, the most blue collar of the constellations, is a little bit. I mean, it's not dirty where like it looks nasty, but it looks used. It looks like a ship that actually is used for things. We get up to the front, and we've still got the same color accents that you get with the Andromeda. One of the key differences in this and the Andromeda is, one, obviously you only have the size 2 set of missiles, so you lose a little bit there. The top turret in this is still a defensive turret. The bottom turret, however, is actually a tractor beam turret. So at the moment, that's not there, but in 3.20, the tractor beam tech is supposed to be implemented, and we'll be able to use that to move cargo much more efficiently. This ship, just like all the Constellations, really rewards crew multi-crew gameplay, although like the others, it's not required for this to run effectively. With a little bit of practice, you can do anything in these. I've run ERTs extensively solo in my Taurus. We get back to the back, and we're going to see the big difference is almost double the cargo capacity of the other constellations. So all the other constellations have 96 SCU. This has 174. And at less than $200, there's nothing even close to that. I mean, the closest you get is the Freelancer Max at 120, and that's 150 bucks. So you're looking at a lot more cargo space. With the introduction of the Fury, you can fit quite a few Furies. I think we fit 4 on there. I will say, if you're going to land Furies in it or take Furies off, don't do it while the ship's landed. I mean, it's possible, but there's a much smaller room for error. If we get all the way back here to the rear area, I know smuggling isn't active at the moment, but there is actually a shielded cargo storage area all the way back here. So that would be kind of neat. So instead of having a snub fighter, you can hide some things you might not want the law knowing you've got on your ship. Some of the other things to note about the Taurus compared to the others, you will notice it is a much longer ship, and that's actually a weakness. So I want to point out the things that matter, and that middle section right there where the cockpit front area connects to the cargo area is a major weak spot that for some reason the shields don't cover particularly well. Now, it's not like you're going to take a shot and you're going to explode. However, it is something to keep in mind. If you start seeing that middle section, that cargo section on your ship outline when you're in combat start turning red, it's time to bail. As far as stats for this ship, purchasing it in-game is 3,256,400 Alpha UEC. It's also another new deal in Lorville ships. It's very easy to acquire. That's not an obscene amount. You know, if you rent a prospector for a few days, you can make that, especially with the updates to how mining works. Making 3 million is not a crazy thing anymore. The hull HP on this is the weakest by quite a bit. You're looking at only 137,740 hull HP compared to the 180 of the Constellation Andromedas and Aquilas. It does still have the 100,000 shield HP stock. The base DPS is 1,570. I've got a fellow orgmate who takes off the 2 of the size 4s and puts on size 5s and removes the gimbals. I'm waiting on some feedback from him to see how that works out for him. This travels at 144 meters a second for SCM speed. It's got a max speed of 911. It's not a fast ship. However, in atmosphere, it doesn't really suffer the acceleration or speed limits that being in atmosphere seems to put on a lot of the larger ships. And what I mean by that is, if you're flying a Hercules, the Hercules is a super maneuverable ship for what it is, but you hit atmosphere and your speed that you can achieve even when boosting is significantly lower. This doesn't have nearly the same limit when you hit atmosphere. Granted, it is not a maneuverable ship in space or in atmosphere. I don't want to mislead anyone. However, you're not really suffering a huge loss when you hit atmosphere like you do with a lot of the larger ships. This is my favorite ship in the game. You guys have probably noticed I'm trying out all sorts of different ships. I'm testing them to give you guys info, and it just keeps coming back to this one for me. As far as a digital purchase, this is something I never saw myself spending $200 on an ethereal object that I could never physically touch. And I love it. I don't regret it one bit. Well, that's been my review kind of buyer's guide for the Constellation series by RSI. Of the bunch, I personally would recommend the Taurus if you're wanting to run cargo. If you're looking for the absolute most versatility, probably the Andromeda is the best bet. If you're, honestly, I can't say any of them are bad purchases. I think of the bunch, the Aquila suffers the most right now just because there is no gameplay loop for its specialization. So you're spending a little more to have less functionality right now. But as soon as exploration's actually added as a gameplay loop, the Aquila is going to be a great purchase. You can't say that about when you're looking at other ships that have multiple variants. Sometimes those other variants are really not all that great, but the Constellation is just a great purchase. It fits. It does exactly what you want it to do. And any of them would be great purchases. I'm going to do housekeeping here at the end instead of at the beginning. So I've got quite a few projects in the works. I know I keep talking about that single seat fighter buyer's guide that I'm working on. It's taken so long because I'm really testing them. I'm running arena commander battles with them. I'm doing all sorts of bounty hunting, PvP with them. I want to give you guys accurate info. And if I'm going to sit there and say that this ship's better than this ship, I want to be able to back it up with experience, not just raw data that doesn't mean anything to the average person. Because once again, guys, I want to make fun stuff. I want to make entertaining stuff. But at the end of the day, I want to make stuff that's genuinely informative to the average buyer. I started all these videos because when I started this game, I would go on YouTube to find answers to questions, and I would just end up with more questions because no one explained how anything worked. No one actually gave the base level information. I served in the Army, and we like to call that nobody broke it down Barney Rubble style. So I try to do that a little bit for you guys. I want to make sure that what I'm saying makes sense. Well, my avatar's telling me it's time to end up. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that like, subscribe button, click that bell icon to get notified when new content's coming out. The channel is growing. I had a over 10% subscriber boost just yesterday, and I woke up with the biggest smile on my face. I'm so excited to share this stuff with you guys, see how the channel's growing. I appreciate all the comments. I'm doing my best to answer comments as quickly as I can. If you've got any recommendations for videos you'd like to see, hey, leave them in the comments. I did one for a viewer yesterday that's turned out great. I want to make content that you guys like. So yeah, do me a favor, comment, tell me what you like, what's going on, what you'd like to see. Other than that, it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you guys all out there in the verse.